Our first presentation of the day is actually a panel on building a sustainable workforce development pipeline. And we're excited to hear this. You know, this has been a major issue and will continue to be for some years to come. And, I've been quoting Abraham Lincoln throughout the week because this is the 215th year since his birth. And one of the things he said is that success in one area encourages us all that anybody can achieve success in their area. And he quoted that following the Civil War. But this morning we want to hear from our friends from a number of different organizations. And I'm going to invite them to come to the stage, as their name is called. We have Ken Nixon, who's General Manager of Engineering, Maintenance, Turnarounds, and Construction with Shell Oil. Joining him is Sean Ray, Vice President and Director of Craft Workforce Development with the Sunt Corporation. We have Cindy Gutierrez, who is Director of Career and Technical Educational Services with the Arizona Department of Education, and Dr. Brandy Tyson, Dean of Technical and Adult Education at the Baton Rouge Community College. And the moderator for this panel discussion is our good friend Jennifer Wilkerson, Vice President of Innovation and Advancement at NCCER. Let's show them our welcome with a hearty applause. Thank you, Jennifer. I'll get out of your way.
No problem. So it looks like we're your coffee crew this morning, good or bad, that's us. So don't want to spend a lot of time with the intro because I really want to we have some great people on this panel. And when I talked about, when I talked with Palmer and putting this together and everything, this is a topic we all know, like we've heard it all week, but we hear it every day. It comes up again and again, and we're all concerned about it. And it's really interesting because back in, I don't know if this was 2015 or 2016, Daniel Groves could probably correct me on this, I don't know when it was. We started doing this particular graphic to try to give an idea of the attrition in our industry. And 2025 seemed like a long way away when we started putting up numbers. And it's pretty scary when you look at this, because that's next year. 25% of our workforce are going to retire. And in 2028, we've got 32%. So these are the kind of things that we are all thinking about. On top of that, for every 5 people that are leaving our industry, only 1 is entering. And that is really concerning when we start thinking about those numbers. Some good news, and when I was talking to some people, they have also seen this article. The good news is construction workers are the happiest workers. So they did surveys with this, HR surveys, and they started looking at it, and they said, why? Why are construction workers the happiest in the nation? And we can look at the reasons, and all of us in the industry know, totally makes sense. Totally makes sense. The progress, visible progress, tangible results, teamwork, camaraderie, diverse job roles, competitive compensation, technology, and all of those totally make sense. People just don't necessarily know about that. That's part of the problem. I think the other thing that's concerning is they did say, look, if the labor shortage continues, people may not be as happy because fewer people doing more work doesn't work for anybody at some point. And they give the advice that none of us are surprised about. Human resource professionals need to really focus on refining their recruitment and their training programs. And that's what we kind of want to talk about. I wanted to put this talent pipeline together where we had the perspective from the secondary, from the high schools, perspective from contractors, perspective from community colleges, and also owners, because it takes all of us to be in here. I will tell you this, shop class is not dead. I don't care what anyone tells you, it is not dead. There are 226,000 high school students currently taking 2 or more construction and architecture classes in high school. There is another 536,000 that are taking at least 1 class. The problem with this is we only get 20 to 22% of them in our industry. That comes directly from the Association for Career and Tech Ed. That's scary. Why? We started asking people. Teachers said, I don't know anybody to connect with after they're in my program. I teach this class, I've been teaching it for years, but I'm not really sure what to do with the kids afterwards. That's on us. That's on us. Like, we need to be in those classrooms. We need to connect. And then you talk about community colleges. You got 103,000 students in this sector. You got another 196,000 taking at least, again, 1 course. So we got a lot of work to do. That's a lot of opportunity for us. That's a lot of opportunity. So I just wanted to bring them together. I throw that out there, not for us to be dismayed by it, but for us to be encouraged. There's an opportunity. It's carpe diem for us in this industry. There has never been another moment like this in time. I taught high school English 13 years, came over to NCCER, I've been here 14 years. Since COVID, I have never seen so many schools reaching out and asking, we need to do career tech ed. They're wanting us to get involved in this. What does this mean? So not too long ago, someone asked me, what would you say? And I say to our industry, carpe diem, like seize the day. We may not ever have a better time than right now. So I'm just going to start out, let each of them kind of tell you in their sector, their organization, what they're doing, what may have changed, ask them a few questions, and then at the end when we get through, we'll open it up so that you all can ask these wonderful people any questions you might have. Okay. We'll start with you, Cindy. Sorry.
Thank you, Jen.
I guess I just expected you to take that cue. I apologize.
Okay. Well, some of the struggles you talked about, I taught high school construction for 13 years. I had very few industry in my classroom. So when I got to the State Department, my goal was, how can I connect industry and education that's going to help our students? So with that, we've been seeing a lot of change lately. About 5 years ago, I sat in a chamber meeting with industry people, and they said that they're looking at their workforces 24 to 28 years old. They don't look at anybody younger, not coming out of high school. They're immature. It's like, why would you wait that long? Why do you want somebody to go and try other things and come to you as a last resort? Why not grab them right out of high school? So it kind of started, things rolling from there. And they're like, okay, what can we do? So the newest initiative in Arizona is the Arizona Education Economic Partnership. It's a private-public partnership that is working to fix those issues, bringing industry and education together, putting together all kinds of deliverables on how we can take that pipeline. So my thing is, you've got to build that pipeline, and that's working with your schools. You have to connect it. We're all connected somehow, so keep those connections going. Then you start filling it, but the biggest thing is you have to maintain that. You have to have that connection to the high schools, to the students continuously. In fact, AAEC met yesterday, and we talked about workforce development. It's very similar to this. What are we already doing that is connecting and continuing that pipeline? We had industry that said 365 days a year, they have a workforce trainer at schools. He's booked for the entire next year. 1 week of training in the classrooms and then on to the next high school. So those are some of the things that are happening. From career and technical education in Arizona, we're trying to help industry understand what we're teaching at the high school level, and that is basic knowledge and skills, and it's industry standards. So when we develop our state standards, we bring in industry professionals to help us write what is needed at the basic entry level. So that's what our students are coming out of high school, very much entry level, but they have a passion. They're in that program because they want to be there. Somebody didn't tell them they had to be there. So we teach them those industry standards. I keep hearing that we want to keep this pipeline and workforce going. Well, make sure that you're connecting to, if you don't know your local CTE program or CTE director, go to your state. Every state has CTE. Find out what's available in your state and then at your local level. So some examples are, we have an industry partner that went back to his own high school here in the Phoenix, or up in the Phoenix area, and he adopted that high school, and he brings his trainers in to work with the students at that high school. Others, again, go around the state. So it's whatever can work within your workforce development, but being there continuously in the classroom, face-to-face with those students. So they're getting to know who you are and your company culture, and you're getting to know what your future workforce is like. So in Arizona, we have approximately 126 school districts and over 15,000 students in just skilled trades careers. Some of the biggest ones being construction technology. So we have a program that teaches basic skills in carpentry, roofing, electrical, concrete, masonry, and plumbing. We have almost 6,000 students enrolled in that program alone. In our welding, we have over 6,000 students enrolled. They all have to go somewhere when they graduate. Excuse me. We'd like them to go out to you, but you need to make those personal connections to those programs and those students. Teacher shortage. If we don't have teachers, then we don't have programs, then we don't have those skilled students coming out. So one of the initiatives, and my passion is, those of you that are aging out are looking for something else to do when you're done with the industry side, perhaps you go into teaching. Okay? In Arizona, we have a subject matter expert certification for career and technical education. A lot of states are doing this. So with an industry credential and 5 years of experience, you can be a CTE teacher. Very simple. Or what else is happening is industry is paying their workforce, one of their employees, to work full-time for them, but be the teacher in that high school program. Great partnership. Wow, we've got the industry expert right in there with the classroom. So you might want to ask yourself, how did you get started in your trade, your career? You know, you were young at one time. The high school students coming out of school are fabulous. You know, it's not what we hear on the news. We have dedicated students. They want to work hard. They have a passion. They just need that connection to you. So with that, it's, you know, they've got to start somewhere. So hopefully you'll get connected to your local schools.
So Cindy, let me ask you this. So when you talk about get connected to your school, what's the expectation of a contractor or owner when you say get involved? Like what would you, how, obviously the teacher shortage, and we know that's a great thing, but what else are the expectations? Because I think sometimes years ago contractors got involved and things may have been different.
Right, so we all have advisory councils. We want your expertise to come in and tell us, do we have the right tools and equipment? Are we teaching the right skills and standards? Also is making that personal connection and actually teaching the students in there. Not every teacher knows every skill that needs to be taught, so we look for you to be the experts, to come in and actually do the training in the classroom. It could be once a month, every couple months, but continuously being there and being face-to-face with those students. That's probably the greatest thing that you could do, is actually be in that classroom.
And I think that's absolutely true. I mean, it's the connection. I think there was a survey not too long ago, and they put it out to students, and they were asking, you know, how do you decide what career to go into? Who are your biggest influencers? And one of them was parents, but the other one was industry representative. Like if they've ever talked to somebody in that particular profession, the students were like, because I don't know about it, so that helped me with that. So that makes complete sense, like just get in there and talk. We're hearing a lot about pre-apprenticeship right now. Can you tell us what, at the high school level, as you're talking about knowledge and skills, what are we looking at there?
So for pre-apprentice, up in Phoenix, we have some vocational area schools. We call them career and technical education districts. They're partnering with business and industry. The business comes in, does a lot of training with those students, hires them during school breaks, summers, and then everything that they're learning in high school, they're using that towards their apprenticeship hours. So they're giving them that credit for learning everything in high school. It's you know, a great experience. Some of them are also signing those students on before they graduate as apprentices. So it's that complete pipeline going through.
That's so exciting. You don't think about it with high school students. I just love the fact that we're really seeing more and more pre-apprenticeships at the high school level and how much excitement that generates for the kids. Look, these kids want to make money too. Why not make money with us instead of, you know, at the local restaurant or somewhere else that they're typically working? This is a great opportunity.
We're actually doing one better. We do have some of our CTEDs that are now putting together a registered youth apprenticeship. Yes,
Awesome.
And that will be happening in the next couple of weeks.
You guys are busy.
We are.
And Sean, I love this, you know, going right into you, because you in Arizona has been super involved for years with not only with the high school level, but also with the college level. So tell us a little bit about some of the things SUNT's doing.
Well, like a lot of the contractors in the room, we're meeting with high schools, we visit different high schools, but the high school scene has changed quite a bit, especially 5 years, 10 years definitely. In the past, from industry side, you go meet with a high school, they give you a tour around, they kind of ask for a check at the end. to help out with some needs. The funding wasn't really there. Fast forward to 2023, 2024, it's a whole different conversation. Now it's, hey, money's great. We need you, to Cindy's point, we need you in the classroom. And if you think about it, we're talking about the teacher shortage, but let's take it a step further. Let's talk about our own industry, right? So we know that wages over the last few years have really gone up. And you're asking somebody to make $50,000-ish to be teaching high school or six figures in industry. And so that's part of the problem also. You've got teachers who want to do the right thing, and they may be good in a certain discipline, but we're also asking them to teach multiple disciplines. So teach masonry, teach carpentry, and if you get time, throw some plumbing in, right? That's where they need us there as well, to be giving back and being that subject matter expert and not just handing over the check and saying, hey, you know what, we'll see you in a year. Make sure you got people we need right away. We do a lot with the community colleges. I think when we start going to the community college side, the conversations are a little bit different because, to Cindy's point, in the high school areas, we really want to focus on those fundamentals, right? The fundamentals are critical. If I can get somebody out of high school who honestly knows how to read a tape, knows how to hold a hammer correctly, we're batting 1,000 already. With the community colleges, we've got full-time instructors that are adjunct instructors at a couple of the colleges here in Arizona, and their subject matter expert comes in, and this is the latest and greatest of what's going on in the industry. Because a lot of these instructors have been out of the industry for a while. They don't know what's going on in the industry. They don't know what technology is being used. They may not have dealt with BIM. They may not have used a lot of the latest and greatest, so we're in there helping with that piece as well. You mentioned the pre-apprenticeship, and we're seeing a lot of legislation coming through right now where federal, state, and local are starting to put higher demands on apprenticeship. We also know that from the industry itself, it's not like our projects are getting easier, right? The schedules are a lot more compressed. Things need to be done faster because, let's talk about the major three, right? You got semiconductors. We're kind of in a bad way. We need chips really bad. We've got water here in Arizona, that's always a topic. And then you got the roads and bridges. Not all of those can be 20-year projects. There are things that need to be happening now. So our clients are like, okay, first question they have is, what are you going to do to get a sustained workforce for this project? It's up to us as an industry to own our side of this and really start pushing forward with the high schools, with the community colleges, giving back in that way. And that's our short-term plan, folks. We have to have that long-term also. So we tend to think of the schedule that's in front of us and we have to hit it. We don't always go to that long-term piece of it. And the long-term piece is changing the minds of people about what construction really is, right? So we were talking last night at dinner. One of the cool things that SUNT's doing is March 2nd, which is the start of Women in Construction Week. We're going to have about 150, hopefully 180 Girl Scouts come into our training center. We'll have kindergarten through 5th graders coming in the morning, and then we'll have 6th grade through 12th grade coming in the afternoon. And we've got cool stuff for them to do, but it's all hands-on learning. And then we're going to have people talking to them going, look, this industry's here for you also, right? We bring in foster kids. We're trying every different way possible to change this perception of our industry. I mean, I've been in this industry 34 years. It's blessed me beyond belief to where I don't understand why other people wouldn't want to come into this industry, but then you hear some of the horror stories and you're like, okay, well, luckily I didn't run into that. But the only people who would change that are us. And it's there again, it's us in classrooms, right? It's us at the community college. It's us going to events like this. But you guys already know what I'm saying. It's us getting out to other places where people don't know, counselors. We went and spoke to a couple high school counselors, and it was pretty depressing, if I'm being honest with you, because they said, look, we've got ASU, U of A, and NAU sending us stuff on a weekly basis about their programs and everything else. As a construction industry, folks, we're all kind of doing this on our own. So they may get something from SUNT, and they get something over here from Fleur or from Black and Veatch or whoever. We don't have that one voice coming in saying, you know what, we're going to put our egos aside, let's train up the industry, and then there will be plenty for all of us to hire. So last thing, real quick, we started up a partnership with Central Arizona College in 2017, and I think what's unique about it is we went into this, one, with no ego, knowing that SUNT was not going to be able to hire all the people that we were envisioning that were going to go to this program, right? So when we started it, they had 18 people in their program at Central Arizona College. We had a goal of 100 the first year. Then we hit 104, we made it up to 285, and then we capped out at about 450. We knew that if we just kept that secret, that at some point, SUNT wasn't going to need those folks. They weren't going to get hired, and they're going to say, this was a crap, right? I spent money, I'm not hired. So we went out to all of our competition in the state and said, come recruit from this program. 100% job placement for every year that we've had it. These students are getting 3 to 4 offers, probably 3 months before they get hired, and the programs continue to grow. We've got to take that approach as an industry of going, look, we've got business development people that are going out trying to get the work. From a training perspective and a learning and talent development, we got to work together. We got to find ways to boost our industry. So.
Yeah, no, you guys are doing such incredible, and you've been at it for a long time. And I think it's that consistency, like Cindy talked about too. You know, someone that says, well, I went to a career fair. Someone did this analogy for me just recently. They're like, you know, a contractor tells you, well, I did one. And they're like, well, that's like going to the gym one time. And you thought your body was going to change. And they were like, you know, it takes more than one time to go and do it. So I do think that consistency is important. So I'm going to ask you the question that all contractors have asked me, or not all, but a lot of them. So these people, these young kids today, they don't want to travel. They don't want to travel, so how do we overcome this problem? And I know that you and I have talked about this, Sean, about how do you address that?
You know, part of that's true. There is a different mentality with the younger folks coming in. I hate it when people say that the younger generation is lazy, because it's just not true. It's just a different set of values, right? And one of those is they're not really jazzed about traveling because a lot of times they don't have to. There's so much work going on that they don't have to go with you across the United States. So there again, it's to that point, Jennifer, of either we try to force them to do something that they're not going to do, or we got to think outside the box, right? And so what we have started looking at is any time that we are shortlisted, getting ready to sign a contract, we're already looking in that area of what community colleges are there, what high schools are there. And, you know, even if it's a 6 to 8 month job, still go in, pour your resources into those community colleges and whatnot. And if you leave and you're leaving behind a skilled workforce, is that a bad thing? It's really not. But you're not going to you can't force people to travel, right? So we have to train. Whether we like it or not, that's where we're at. Our journey people are getting older, and that experience is going away with the retirement. And, you know, we've been talking about this for at least a decade and a half, and we kept saying, man, this is coming. Well, it's here. So we got to start doing this now.
Yeah, and I really like that idea. And we have seen it more and more, you know, just from our perspective at NCCER. We do have people call us up, contractors, and say, hey, you know, what high schools and what colleges I'm going to Ohio, I'm doing a big job, like, what are they in the area? For me, whether it's NCCER school or not, I just think that's really a great strategy for that. Like, we have to stop doing what we've done for so many years and break out of the box. And I think having that forethought to go, we've got a job coming up in Oklahoma, and we don't have enough people that are going to travel. So let's go there and figure out what's the talent that's there. Let's tap in to that talent and find out. And I think it's a great idea. I don't know why I thought it, like when you said it, was like, oh, it was epiphany. Like, this makes complete sense. We should be doing that. So I love that idea. The other thing that you've talked a lot about for contractors is getting more involved in the government relations. Why is that important? What are you doing? What does that mean? None of us want to be involved with government, but we have to be.
Yeah, well, I didn't either, right? One of the most bipartisan issues out there right now is workforce development. And let's be honest, when we go meet with state legislators, they'll flat out tell you, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what programs are working. They don't know. They don't. And Cindy would get so frustrated because I tell her, yeah, they just said that they didn't know that there was a funding issue. And Cindy's just looking at me like, right? So we go meet with legislators. We probably do 7 to 10 trips a year to the state legislature. And honestly, we talk to them about CTE and how important pre-apprenticeships are, how critical the funding is. You know, pre-COVID, we went to a local trade school, I won't mention the name, and we did what we always do, right? We gave them a check. And we gave them a check for $5,000, and that doubled their material budget. $5,000, right? We waste a lot of money in government. I hope I'm not going out for the line. I was in the military also, so I saw the golden toilets and all that we talked about, okay? We need to invest, and the legislators have to hear it from us. So I'm talking to my construction industry folks. They need to hear from us how important it is. It can't be just Cindy and the Arizona Department of Education saying we need X, Y, and Z. They need us over there right beside them saying, look, we're short here, we need this. This would really help out. The pay for teachers, we've all had those conversations. You know, you want to get those qualified teachers, you want people to teach really good programs, you got to pay them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the fact because like Cindy's saying, in their state, they have the funding, and it's because of companies like SUNT that's gotten involved, because I'll tell you, until they hear it from the employers, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how many schools say it, oh, it's not a problem. So I love that. You know, just talking about community colleges and you guys getting involved with CAC, I love having Dr. Tyson with us just because Baton Rouge Community College is really involved with their employers, and you guys are doing a lot of really interesting new things to even get more connected. Tell us about that.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm gonna give you the setting for Baton Rouge Community College. So I started there 18 years ago, right in the classroom. And then before this current position, had the privilege of overseeing various manufacturing and construction programs. So BRCC is a part of the Louisiana Community Technical College System. So leading right from what Sean said, right there in Louisiana, we've got a system of 9 community colleges that are spread out geographically, right? So last semester, we had our highest enrollment of over 11,000. So think about that pipeline of students that are there in various areas, including construction and manufacturing for you. The graduates from our programs average about $46,000. So just imagine what this upskilling could change as far as their personal lifestyles and economy. Every year on like an annual basis, we probably contribute, our graduates do about $297 million to the Louisiana economy. So we take that and we work with our partners to make sure that we're producing a really, really solid product. And so since I've been there, across those 18 years, I've seen a ton of transition. And if you can see from just my title alone, it shows the change that BRCC's had over time. So traditionally, when you think of community colleges or junior colleges, however you know, the semantics for your area, you think 2-year programs, individuals are transferring. And so we had that same mindset many years ago with academics and then the non-credit or workforce side separate. And what we did is we reorganized August of 22 so that all of the resources that go with the program are together. So if you're in manufacturing or construction, whether it's credit leading to an associate degree, a certificate program, a technical diploma, or it's short-term training that our partner needs, something that's customized, something that's quick, that can be established, we put those together. So now each of those units has an ability to see the overall picture and has more of the human capital, the lab spaces to deliver the product that's needed, not only for the students, the community, but for our industry partners. I'm really excited about that. We have two that I'll mention specifically, model programs that we offer. One is called the North Baton Rouge Industrial Training Initiative. It combines students, instructors, ExxonMobil, other contracting stakeholders, and the community. So what we do with that program is we offer anything from NCCER welding, electrical, millwright, pipe fitting, and we'll start process technology soon. It's a no-cost, 1-year program where individuals are able to come in and get trained by professionals with an opportunity for employment at the end. So what a great model for that, right? So you're not just coming to get a degree that may or may not transfer. You're getting something, you're in the classroom being trained by the individuals who have the opportunity to hire you at the end. And it's not just safety and technical training, it's embedded with financial literacy. There are mock interviews in there. There's employability skills. So that shows you that the partnership with the stakeholders, the industry partners, you can make and build whatever that program needs to produce the qualified workforce that you need. So that's one with ExxonMobil, and then we also have created an advanced electrical maintenance training program with Triad and ISC. So with us offering NCCER electrical already, they're like, okay, that's good, electrical levels 1 through 4. However, my workforce needs these advanced skills. So we sat side by side with them, shoulder to shoulder, to create a curriculum especially for them. They said, okay, well, let's take this a step further. They gave us their workforce to come in and teach. So that it all goes with what the panel's already said. And then even another step, they're like, okay, I need them trained on this type of equipment. So we're gonna give you that and we're gonna set it up in the lab. So those are the partnerships that we see at Baton Rouge Community College that are making just a tremendous impact. Other innovative things, as far as the community college goes, sometimes you just don't know what's at the community college, right? And that could be from the high schools, from the parents, or just the basic community. So we're offering free training in construction, site safety, orientation and technician, just for them to come and try. We also do free training in transportation and logistics because it's like Netflix or other places you get a free subscription. Come and try it, and then we get you all hooked in and just love us at BRCC, and then it opens up to all these other training opportunities as well as partners.
You guys always are doing so many incredible things. They have an amazing campus that's just fabulous. But here's a little interesting thing that happened to Brandy and I like over a year ago. So we're at the American Association for Community Colleges, and we put a panel together, and we wanted industry there about how they connect. Yeah. So I won't say the name of the company, very large construction company, and they all of a sudden he goes, you know, I don't think we're recruiting from community colleges. He goes, I wasn't thinking about this. So he gets on the phone, calls his recruiters. He's like, hey, you know, when we have these projects in all these states, are you guys, you know, checking in with the community college? And they weren't. Like, he was like, I cannot believe that we are not checking in with and seeing what they have. And some of that, I think, is because they don't realize you will build a program for them. They think you already have your programs fixed.
Yes. And so that's a part of the reorganization. We are having to rebrand, reimagine what we are. Because traditionally, right, it is an associate degree program. When you hear community college, they move slow or have graduates and completers every 2 years. We are getting away from that stigma. So we can, the beauty of the reorganization is that we can see every program. So if there's something that exists, we can push and pull from it and then add as needed in a customized way that doesn't require all the red tape, because we know there's red tape in academics to get new programs and stuff. But if you start on that workforce side, we can stand up things fairly easily. So that partnership was great.
Yeah, that's, and going to the American Association for Community Colleges, there's a lot of colleges doing this now. Mm-hmm. Since COVID, there has been a real shift back to employability. Like, how do I get these people employed? It's about to that local kind of real focus that I love. Yeah. I mean, it's really great hearing them all talk about that. Mm-hmm. So from contractors and owners, you touched on a lot of things. Any things you didn't touch on that you need from them, or if you made a connection, what you'd like to see?
Well, I'll just add to what Cindy and Sean have already said. The participation in the advisory boards are key, and also giving the subject matter experts, lending that time and that expertise is critical. But when we think about that and we think about the pay, you could take it and be creative. Think of endowed professorships. What does that mean? It's related to money, of course. But if you give that money into the college, that could increase the salary and have a more qualified individual in the front of the classroom. So you can be extremely creative with that. I would also just encourage that earn as you learn model. That's really key, right? The students, the adults that come to us for training, they do want immediate gratification. So just something that can be converted to an earn as you learn along the way. So a credential, but also earning is key.
And a job.
And a job.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so Ken, you know, Shell Deepwater, you guys are doing some really interesting things because, you know, we talk about the difficulty with recruiting, and you'll talk a little bit about that. So you had to really look internally and do some things. So tell us some things that you guys are doing from the owner perspective.
Yeah. So for context, we're in deep water, so which means that you go offshore to do your work, and that means 14-day hitch on, 14-day hitch off. So there's a subset of the pool that we're talking about that will even consider doing that type of work. What we were finding is that along with the rest of the Gulf Coast industry, we were just struggling to get trained and, more importantly, in my opinion, certified craft to come work both at the shell side and the construction side that we do offshore. So what we had to do is we had to back up, and of course COVID, I believe, kind of gave us a push because we lost quite a few people during COVID. In deep water, you can imagine it's like being on a ship. So one person gets COVID, everybody gets COVID. And so what we had to do is had to mandate the vaccine. And if you know anything about South Louisiana people, there's an independent streak that runs through them. And so we lost about a third of our workforce, including Shell employees, just said, ain't gonna do it. All of that combined left us with a need. And the need, even though all the work that we're talking about is being done in South Louisiana, we just were not attracting the people that we needed. So we require deep water training from BSEE, which the governmental agency that watches the Coast Guard, and also Shell. So we reached out to NCCER, and we got our facility certified to actually do craft training. And so there's beds there, you get fed, everything. So we had to actually make it really convenient for craft when they came to do their governmental type training. We also gave them training in the craft. And as an incentive, we offered additional pay, which sounds shocking, right? And our contract partners that we were dealing with had told us Shell had beat them down so low on the pay that they really weren't able to attract certified craftsmen for the money that we were offering. So we had to undo a lot of that. Success, in the last 2 years, we've been able to go to almost 100% certified, both Shell craft and construction craft workforce. And we believe that it shows up in our results. We've had the best 2 years since in Shell Gulf Coast since we've been measuring it, from availability, rework, and things of that nature. So I always tell my superiors, the cheapest investment you can make is efficiency, right? And how do you get efficiency? You don't just walk off and do work. You have to actually train these folks, and the response has been overwhelming. Not only did they like the money, the increase and the pay, and it's basically, it's if you achieve this level, you get this pay. If you achieve this level, you get this pay. That was a big one. But what we found is that the motivation that went along with it, people are actually proud to say, I'm a certified mechanic, or I'm a certified electrician, so forth. So there was a badge of honor that went along with it. So overall, we saw quite a bit of improvement in this space. And again, it shows up in lower cost, it shows up in lower downtime, and I think improved motivation.
Absolutely. And you guys started by trying to understand what the skill level and knowledge level was of your people. So what did you do so that you knew where to start with your training?
Yeah, so I'm one of the older crowd now. But when I grew up, and my father was a union machinist, so I was used to the building trades and trained people. 6 uncles, all union machinists. In the 80s, things dropped, and we went right to work. And we didn't have a program that really stepped up in this space. And what we had to do is we kind of had to re-envision, how we would do it. And again, it's not going to be one of the things that we all talked about. I think it's going to be a mirage of all these different things, these tactics that we're going to have to take to get these folks to be trained and proud about their job. I mean, I'll do a sales pitch here. So would you think it would be hard to get somebody to make a minimum $75,000 or a maximum of $130,000 a year as a craft? You would think people would be jumping to get that money, but they're not. And so the ones that we do have that are willing to work these hitches, we've got to keep them. We've got to maintain them. We've got to make sure that we respect them and that we show that respect through investment and then, of course, the compensation on the back end.
Yeah, and I love the fact about the pride and stuff, because we see that all the time, is when you give someone the opportunity and you give a credential with it, a certification with it, there is not only is the incentive the pay, but that builds such confidence in the people that are doing that. So I think that's cool. Something else you guys have done, you've kind of started with a consortium. It's not just Shell that's now thinking about how do we build a more qualified workforce. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so this is non-collusion, but our main competitors actually happen to be our main partners in offshore. Typically, you don't have one owner. It's a consortium of owners. Well, when they started noticing what we were doing, if we get all the trained people, what do they get? What's left? And so they've actually showed up in earnest and want to join us. And I keep telling them, I keep trying to mention it, is that the cheapest investment in efficiency that any of us can make is training. Is if you train, you have a well-qualified person. And offshore, the constraint is beds, so POB. And it doesn't matter how much work you have. If you don't have a bed to put somebody in, you can't do the work. So when you have, where we came from in COVID, 5 people doing a 2-person job, to 2 people doing a 2-person job and doing it more efficiently, it makes a big difference. So we're finishing our turnarounds earlier, which is enormous, because the less days you have those platforms running or out of service, the more barrels you pull through. But our competitors have seen that, and the way we're approaching it is if we train everybody, it floats the whole boat up, right? Everybody gets to benefit from it. So a lot of good interest in that.
Absolutely. And it kind of goes what Sean was saying about the contractors with the schools. If you just get in there and you're just doing it for your company and you keep it to yourself, then it doesn't really help, and I get it. We're all competitive. We all want them to work for us. But being able to do this and think, by all of us working together, we can, raise the bar and in general, because I think, that's what happens. Even when we recruit, it's not about recruiting just for your company. We got to get people to choose construction and understand construction before they're willing to work for anyone's company. But I love what you guys are doing. And regardless of whether it would have been NCCER or not, why a third party? Why not just use Shell's own programs?
So we had data that showed our own programs, our own training programs, was not delivering what we expected. So we assessed everybody. So you can imagine assessing a 25-year mechanic, how that went over. Not good. And the results were not good. And what it showed is that these craft had hired on, probably through a vendor, a partner, and then hired on with Shell. And then whoever they hired on with, or whoever their buddy was that they were training with, is the training level that they got. And so what we were seeing is very proud people, but their competency level was fairly low. So we mandated it, of course. But now what you see is the craft coming back and saying, I want more. And so what we're working on is advanced training. So we have my discipline engineering groups creating rotating equipment programs, controls and programs, electrical programs. By the way, the electrical program, when we did the assessment, 80% of those folks passed. And it's because we mandate a 12-day training course before you can ever go out and be an electrician. So it kind of shows that if you want good quality craft, you have to invest, you have to train. These are great people, but great people is not sufficient. There have to be a training that goes along with it. And then, of course, the respect and the pay that should come along with it. So it's been a winning success for us. And my hope is some bright person in the future doesn't come and turn it off, because we also have evidence of build a world-class training facility, and then 5-6 years later, somebody comes in and says, hey, we can save money through CBT. So what do? They turn off the face-to-face training, and then somebody else comes in and turns it on. So it's a I guess a tenuous situation at best to say that what we're doing is going to work for a longer period of time. Mm-hmm. It really matters that we have a lot of tactics working in parallel to sustain us in this environment.
And that's a really good point. We've seen that a lot. People retire out, and that was your person that was really dedicated to training and workforce development. And then if you don't have someone coming up behind them in succession, that doesn't get carried on. We've worked with so many companies and all of a sudden haven't done anything with them. And 10 years later, someone comes, hey, I think our company used to work with you guys, but somehow we stopped, and I want to know more about you. We're trying to do more training. So I do think it's important for us to make sure that we have that succession plan that keeps our training and our recruitment and all those pieces continuing. Even, Ken talks about retiring one day. I hope you don't, but I mean. So what I want to do is kind of open it up to everyone here and let you ask questions for this group, and hopefully we can get some great feedback from you also.
First of all, let's show our appreciation for Jennifer and the panel. Okay, we've got a ton of questions, and if you have some questions, and I tell you what, we're a little bit more intimate this morning. Why don't we do some audience questions first? Who has the first one? Who has the courage to go first? Microphones are in place, and there's one in the very back. Thank you.
Hey, thank you everybody for everything you're doing. Very passionate for me on the apprentice and the training and working with the community colleges, and so everything you talked about rang true. So I got just two quick questions. Cindy, for you, the pre-apprentice program is very intriguing to me, because we've worked very hard over the last 5 years from an open shop construction market to develop registered approved apprenticeship programs. And that pre-apprentice, it really struck. So my question to you is there somewhere that I can go and look to see what that looks like, what the structure, the curriculum?
So we kind of follow what the registered apprenticeship is. Our state standards try to align to whatever registered apprenticeships we have in the state. They also align closely to NCCER. So it's looking at those standards and what our business partners would accept, and they work on those standards. Basically, it's just kind of following, here's the entry skills, this is what we're teaching and training in high school. Business partners come in and help provide some of that training, and it can vary from district to district on how that happens. But the key point is the students are getting credit for that prior learning before they go into an RA.
Excellent, thank you. Ken, for you, the 12-day training for electricians that you mentioned, that really struck with me. I'm curious on the success of that, because honestly, that's a lot of the training for a registered apprentice program. You get in that 12 days. Can you tell us a little bit about, are you seeing the success from that? Because that may be something I want to incorporate into our programs.
Yeah, so you can imagine being offshore, There's certain levels of equipment and things that you touch from a safety standpoint that require different levels of our layers of protection. So what we did is, and this is before my time, but what the electrical engineering manager that works for me did was said, I'm not allowing anybody to touch my equipment unless they know these skills. And so at our Robert Training Center, we have that 12-day class in addition to the NCCER. So they have to be certified, both assessed, written, and performance test, and then they go to this 12-day course where they actually get finer details that are more equipment specific to a platform or to an asset offshore. Great success. Again, we're duplicating it with our controls, we're duplicating it with our rotating equipment and mechanics, because they also do crane, they even fix the ice machines. So there's things that they need to work on that are not necessarily going to be taught in NCCER. NCCER just gives you the foundation, and we see these advanced programs giving them the next layer. And by the way, they get to take that with them wherever they go. It's portable. It's not, one, unless it's hopefully Shell. Folks don't leave us.
Yes, go right ahead.
So maybe a question, next step type of thing. But my question really is around: are we teaching the right things, right? I mean, if you think about a lot of the presentations that we've had here this week, in automating everything, I guess the first question would be: where do you see robotics fitting into the future of construction? And if you really want to attract the next generation, that would excite them. So is that a path that we should be heading down? And if so, then how do we contractually work with our contractors to allow them to, build up that capability to address a lot of these issues, right? You got safety, you've got availability of resources and so on that would be directly affected if we could do more robotic type activities. Now, a lot in there, but.
No, it's a great question, and it's one, at least for our company, that we're constantly looking at, because there's already robotics being used, in welding, right? So a lot of welding now has robotics. We look at, I just learned about ChatGPT the other day, and I thought that was the best thing since sliced bread, But reality is a lot of that technology is still super expensive because it's new. So it's not being tried out probably as much as it could be. But I think we're going that direction. But I don't think you can replace everything, within at least the next 5-10 years that our craft professionals still do. But we got to step up our game. That innovation has to be part of our training. We have to continue to look at, the traditional 4-year apprenticeship, right? That won't go away. But some of the things that we talk about outside of apprenticeship is even like micro credentials, right? And we do that because is someone who's not in an apprenticeship going to want to be a helper for 4 years or 5 years till they become a journeyman? Or could they get micro credentials in certain areas? I think you're going to see the same thing in technology, where it's going to be in bite-sized samples. I don't think there's going to be a major shift, at least from what I can see for the foreseeable future.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, Gracie?
Yeah, thank you all. And it is really important, the work that you're doing, but thank you all. My question is the ongoing education, and it's more about the frontline supervisors. What we're seeing, you get the people trained, they become good journeymen, but those are the people that are your next frontline supervisors. How does that ongoing education fit in between all the pieces, which includes the community colleges, and it includes, the different people too. A lot of people do that in-house, but the one thing that I've seen overall is those frontline supervisors, they get promoted and then they're not given those leadership skills, they're not given that training. Can you address some of that ongoing training?
I'll do one more of those, and then I'll turn it over to you, Dr. Brad. So this is a big passion point of mine as well. For the last 8 years, we had frontline supervisor training, and it's like the pendulum swings, right? We go from very technical side of what a supervisor needs to know, and then we realize that we're missing out on the soft skills. so we swing back the other direction. And in reality, you got to have a good combination of both. And so we just came up with our new frontline supervisor training that incorporates things that we had never thought of before. One of them is mental wellness, right? Mental wellness is something that doesn't get talked about as much as it should, but construction's still leading the way in suicides and with opioids and whatnot. Financial wellness is another one. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is another thing that we've added. So we notice the same thing because we've talked so much about that shortage in our skilled professionals. So we are having to move people up to foreman and even superintendent really before they're ready, more out of necessity than want. So that if that training's not there, then you start having more of the HR issues and whatnot. Our whole company saw it to the fact that we have manager effectiveness training also, which is for our project engineers, project managers, project executives. Because what we're hearing from them a lot is, I've been doing this for 30 years and I don't necessarily know how to talk to the younger generation. I don't know how they think. And so we have a whole separate course just for that we're seeing some good benefits out of. Dr. Brandy?
Yeah, and so what I'd say with the partnership with the community college, if you all were to share with us from an HR perspective, what are some needs from leaders, we could embed that training and you all could offload that to us. So while you're spending time worried about the bottom line and the production, you can give that training to the community college. So it could be something as someone from the field going out now more front-facing to the client and they might need a little bit of customer service training. We could offer that as a package. If you're also thinking about individuals who are changing craft or even hiring individuals who have no training right off of the street, community colleges could do that for you. We could be upskilling, reskilling, refreshing. So it's really about just ripping off the Band-Aid of what you thought the community college was or would deliver, and we still do, but just using us in a different way. And it's all about sharing communication. What are the skills that are a deficit? What do you want to just refresh, right? If I've been in leadership for 10 years, maybe I'm doing the same thing, but I'm talking to a different set of individuals. So the PD that's needed is, how do I talk to the Gen Zs, right? Because I've got 2 teenagers, I cannot communicate with them the way I do with the panel here. So it's all about just sharing the information, us listening, and then creating what works for you. And it's not cookie cutter.
And I'll say I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. I would be in trouble with my boss. But we recently created a superintendent program that allows field people to understand the business of construction and really focus on the leadership and understanding that business side. But we're also working on foremen. So we're currently knee deep in our foremen too, because you start looking at those gaps. We started with superintendent, but man, you got in between there. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. And so we absolutely see the need for that.
I want to add something at the high school level. If you haven't heard of or been involved with Skills USA, these are national career and technical student organizations. They are run by students. So they're learning that leadership in the high school. They're running their local organizations, state organizations, and the national ones. So we're trying to do our part to provide these future leaders for you.
I love that you said that, because if you don't know about Skills USA, and I'm always surprised how many people don't know about Skills USA, but for Career Tech Ed, it is the Olympics of Career Tech Ed. Every year in June, they have a national competition where the best culinary students, automotive students, electrical students, welding students come and converge right now on Atlanta. That's where they are. And they ended up having 100 competitions with 6,000 kids competing. And so what Skills USA is that every state has a Skills USA office, and they work with the high schools that want to provide leadership training along with Career Tech Ed. And so these kids get that as embedded into their program: how to publicly speak, how to shake a hand, how to look someone in the eyes, how to communicate correctly. They compete at their school. If they win, they go to their district. If they win their district, they go to their state. They compete at their state. If they win at their state, they're going to the national competition, and they compete. And what happens, if you haven't been there, employers show up, and Sean knows this, They're offering these kids jobs because they're graduating from high school as the best welder in the United States, the best electrician, the best automotive technician, culinary arts, all of that, and people are just waiting there to get these kids have their resumes ready. Like they're wanting to talk to you, and I get chill bumps thinking about it because the first time I ever went, I was just blown away, and my husband went with me, who's a welder, and he was like, why didn't I know about this when I was in high school? Like I would have wanted to compete to be the best welder in the United States. It's a really great organization. Thank you for bringing that up.
And don't you love Jennifer's passion with this? I love it. You know, I want to endorse what Dr. Tyson said about being a partner. Years ago, we established a local user council in Iowa with the Kirkwood Community College. And then in South Georgia, some of you might remember, Chris and others, we had Merck Pharmaceuticals, we had Miller Brewery, we had Procter & Gamble, we had the Marine Corps Logistics Base, and we went right to Dr. Parker, who was president of Albany Tech, and they did exactly what Brandy was telling you that the community colleges can do. So they are a terrific, I think, underrated secret sauce in our program.
Definitely.
I just wanted to give you that endorsement. I was also amazed with Kirkwood. Every program that they offered, they had a for-profit entity that allowed the students to get training and then allowed the organization, the community college, to get income. So if you were in a fire training program, they offered a fire training program for every fire department in the state of Iowa, made money off of it, and gave an opportunity for those students to learn hands-on. So I think experientially, because I was involved in both of those initiatives experientially, I believe that community and technical colleges are one of the most underrated assets in the portfolio, and we ought to get it out, dust it off, and stand it up. Let me ask a quick question from, I'm going to take it a point of executive privilege as we approach the end of our time. This is an important issue, and we have a little flexibility today, especially with our lunchtime, et cetera. So we're going to go a little beyond the schedule. Because we've just got a plethora of questions. Here's one. We've heard several times over the past couple of days that the owner has to be engaged and financially supportive of workforce development and training in order for it to truly be successful. Question, what is the most important thing an owner can do, and how can we unlock this owner-contractor collaboration for workforce like we did 40 years ago in safety?
Crickets, no one. You know, Ken, you hit on something though about mandating and what an owner can do. Talk because I think that kind of answers this somewhat. There's probably other things too.
Yeah, so we didn't do it in deep water in a vacuum. This is how siloed our manufacturing organization is. In manufacturing, we did this almost 20 years ago, where we mandated it in the contracts. You had to be certified, and there was pay according to it. When you flip over to upstream, what we saw is that they didn't even know anything about that. So we just carried that over. But the important part is understanding, and don't underestimate how often the owner people change out. And especially you've got to penetrate into the upper levels to make sure that they not only understand it, but they're backers of it. And then secondly, you got to put it in the contracts. The only way you're gonna get certified people is if you mandate that the people that are coming to you are certified. That in turn has a tag-on effect. So I think working with them, understand. You see a senior leader come in, go visit, go help them understand why it's so important. And again, I'll say it to you guys again. The cheapest investment we can make as an owner is for efficiency is training, right? I think if you can sell that, it'll help them. And then lastly, just insist that they if you want good quality certified people, put it in the contracts.
Sean, did you want from a contractor perspective?
The only thing I would add from the contractor side is we hear from some owners, the ones that aren't the best, they can train after work. And when our folks are already working 60, 70 plus hours, but you want them to still come in, from 7 to 9, that 9 train, be understanding and support training that happens during the workday. You know, it's already a struggle with productivity, but also training's a requirement. There needs to be that balance. And there's some great owners out there who are like, look, we totally get it. Don't abandon the job site, but split your crew in half where half of them are out in the field while others are in training. Good owners will work with you. Others are like, that's your problem, figure it out.
Yeah, I think there was a comment over here, Aaron, that was a follow-up to one I made earlier. So I see you, Jamie. We'll get there in just a second. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Carla Thompson with Turner Industries Group, and we're a contractor industrial company, and I agree with everything that everyone on the panel is saying. But here's the big thing. We have to have entry-level jobs for these people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It is impossible for us to keep getting people to come into our industry if we can't say to these kids, there is work for you.
Yeah.
And if every client would commit to putting just 5 entry-level people on their projects, we would have room for all these kids to start and to build. But the other thing, Jennifer, you've got to talk about talent pipeline while we're here, because these kids graduate and we can't find them. And NCCER has solved that issue for us. And we need to talk more about these profiles these students can build. Then us as companies, we can sign up with NCCER for this program. And when we have entry-level jobs, it gets posted on this talent pipeline website. And we can find these kids. And I think that's incredible. And the other thing it does, it allows our community colleges and our high schools to track where their students have gone, which has been a big issue for a lot of years. They have no idea if these young people have been connected with industry or not.
Absolutely. I did not pay her. I didn't pay her with that at all. We did start a tool, because you're absolutely right. The problem is if the crew mix has to be all journey level, we're in trouble. Like, we're never going to get them there. So if you're not willing to open the door to entry level. Right. So we did start a tool called Career Starter. And basically it's just a free tool for high school students. Go in there, build a profile. If you've been taking construction classes, put them in there. Free to employers. You get your own site. You get to put up your name, what you're looking for, what you're doing. And basically it's just a way for you to reach out and see what's out there. And so with our high school programs, it's part of the lesson plan. Like, get your kids on here, sign them up, have them kind of advertise themselves and make the connections. Like, Turner Industries has been great about hiring these kids that are just coming out of high school. Because, it's like what you said. I mean, we're not saying they're coming out as, certified welders or they're coming out as certified pipe fitters. What we're saying, as Ken and Sean said to you, it's the foundation, though. And you got some top-notch kids that are coming out of these programs. It's amazing.
But you do have to, at that same point, they're not coming out as journeymen.
No.
But you can't pay the same or less than McDonald's.
Less than McDonald's.
Right. Seriously, you can't.
Right.
You can't say, you have no experience. We're going to bring in at $14 an hour when we truly know fast food's paying more than that, or they'll Uber or DoorDash. It has to be attractive. We have to make construction sexy again. Come on, I'm bringing it back.
Yeah, let's go.
No, we don't want to see you bringing sexy back.
Let's go. We'll leave that right there. We'll pick that up next year. No, I appreciate that. Also, you need to know that there's a group that was an offshoot of Kurt several years ago in our workforce committee that is also a resource. I'm just going to mention it. It's called Construction Industry Resources, and the website is CIRanalytics.com. So you may want to check that out. It was a tangential initiative that emerged from the Workforce Development Committee some years ago. CIRanalytics.com. Just check it out. Jamie, right up here in the front, guys. There you go.
Thanks much. Being from Baton Rouge as a hometown and having worked for ExxonMobil for 39 years, it's great to hear the update from the community college in Baton Rouge. And as well, Ken, your perspective from Shell. It's also great to hear what's going on right here in Arizona. I regularly tell people that the most enjoyable offshore crew I worked with in the Gulf of Mexico was a group of firemen from Tucson some years ago. The question that I have is back, I think, mainly to the high school topic. I was visiting with one of the major construction management program chairmen from one of the major universities, and he was talking about different ways that he's been involved in really trying to work to attract high schoolers into the industry. And he said one of the most effective recently was in really contacting the guidance counselors within the schools, being a part of their conferences and really kind of getting the word out that way. I think, Sean, you may have mentioned counselors. Just curious as to whether you have a perspective there. Also, just want to thank all the panelists like others have done, Cindy, Sean, Brandy, Ken, for the work you're doing, Jennifer as well, on this important topic for us in the industry. You're touching so many lives and families in a positive way for today and for the future. So, yeah, maybe Sean or any others on that guidance counselor topic in particular.
I don't think guidance counselors are evil, right? I think we got a educational system that for a long time that was tailored. So my wife taught high school as well for 14 years, and she was graded on how many kids went to college. That's how she was at that time, whether she was an effective teacher or not. I think that's changing.
Oh, yes.
Right? But, so the counselors still, you know, we have to have a clear message. And I don't know that we as an industry have a real clear message about our own industry. And until we get that, we're going to struggle a little bit there. You know, I still think counselors are also influenced by parents. And I think that's still where we need to do a better job of getting parents to understand. You know, the Girl Scout event that I told you about, I'm excited, yeah, because we're going to be showing these young adults construction, but it's the parents. And the parents are going to see, oh, wait, they can make what? And there's this much work, and this is how that is. It's that perception thing to me again. Our partnership that we started with Central Arizona College, one of the things that really made it grow is our folks going through it, because we do our apprenticeship through it as well. So we pay tuition, my company does, to the college. So our apprentices are getting college credit, as well as the people going through the program. So does that mean that they're going to go on and get their bachelor's degree? A lot of them won't. But you know what? Their parents are putting on formerly Twitter and all the other fancy ones, my kids in college. It's that perception, honestly, and I think if we get parents on board, I think counselors want to do the right thing, but we have to be consistent with them. Cindy?
Yeah, I'll add to that. So counselors in Arizona are generally 1 to 900.
Yeah.
So that counselor might talk to that one student once a year, and that's to pick up the paper to register for classes next year. So they have a huge coursework, a lot of students to work with. But some of the things that we're doing in Arizona is we have our Arizona Career and Technical Education Summer Conference, which we invite all the counselors from across the state to attend, and we have sessions on CTE for counselors. We invite them to come into the CTE sessions. So we really want to involve them in what career and technical education is. We have cut sheets on all the programs that we offer that go out to the counselors. Our state counselor director is housed under CTE. So we're constantly trying to get that message out to counselors about what their programs are, and especially those programs that are at their specific schools, so they can learn more about them and then guide students to where they need to go. But one of the other issues is you have the universities, military on the campuses every single week. Yep. Where is the construction industry? They're always there. They're touting. You know, I went to university, so yes, I know. They're touting going to school. You know, this is what you need to do. But they're also saying, yeah, spend your dollars, go into debt to get to this place. But they don't say, here's all the other pathways to get to be successful. And then, you know, how do you measure success? What is it that that student really wants to do when they get out of high school? Where do they want to go? So it's not always the counselors not directing them. It's just mostly they don't have the time to, or they don't have the time to really learn about what other pathways there are.
And what they've told us is they've said if contractors or people just bring by some pamphlets or something, like we did a survey with the American School Counselor Association, and they were like, I don't have time, but if it's in my office, I put up all kinds of stuff in my office about colleges. I have tons of pamphlets. They said, if those companies would just give me a pamphlet that says, you know, these are the kind of jobs, this is what it is, they're happy to pass it out. They just don't know. I will tell you, there was a recent survey, 74% of Gen Z, that graduated from high school recently, 74% said that they wish they had known all the options and they were already out of school and nobody had told them. 74% of the students.
John, let me ask a question. I'm going to take a point of personal privilege. You said young people are not lazy. I get tired of hearing it. They just have a different set of values. In your experience, what are those values that are different from the majority of us here in the room?
So I'm a Gen Xer, right? And growing up, my parents, when they would tell me to do something and I asked why, it was because I said so, right? And that was my way of learning also. It wasn't that I needed to know the why, I just needed to know how to do what they were showing me how to do. What we're seeing from the Gen Z is the why is one of the most critical components. Maybe millennial also, but definitely the Gen Z, why is critical. They want to know why. Why when you're welding, why do you have to move your hand a certain way? Why do you have to use a certain wire? It can drive you crazy, right? Especially if you're not used to that. But reality is, if you can capture that why, then they get more engaged and they're willing to interact more. So the why is honestly the critical component. But if you use that old mentality of just do what I told you to do, it's not going to work. It doesn't work. We're seeing it over and over.
Very telling. Thank you. Rob?
I think this lines up a little bit with what you were just talking about, but my perspective as Procter & Gamble owner is I think that bringing all these new people into the work site is absolutely phenomenal. However, we have old line supervisors, we have old line foremen, and they're not educated enough to go and be a leader, I feel. But, so how do we go and ensure, I mean, these people are being dumped into a work environment that they may not be prepared for, and they're getting very little leadership from the foreman and the supervisors. So your perspective on that?
It goes back to what we were finding out so the company I work for, like a lot of companies out there, had major growth over the last few years. And with that, you've got a lot of people who've come into the company that haven't been with the company, don't understand the culture that we're trying to set. So we started noticing we were having more and more issues like you're talking about with people being frustrated with the way they were being talked to. And most of it was coming from a senior project superintendent to the new folks, right? So our executives made a very smart decision and said, you know what, we want to have this training called manager effectiveness training. And to Ken's point, our CEO said anybody that manages a person is going to go through this training. It is mandatory. And it goes through HR, right? And it was on ethical supervision, doing the right thing even when no one's looking. And a lot of people, that's where I started hearing the comments, because I helped teach a part of it, was, man, I'm not wanting to be a jerk. This is the way I talk, this is the way my parents talk to me. I don't think I'm being rude. And when they start hearing because there's a good mix, right? You've got younger folks in the room along with your senior superintendent, and you've got that young field engineer going, yeah, that don't jive with us. And it's working. It's been pretty crazy. And there's some who are never going to change, right? And we'll see how that goes.
Thank you. We have. Oh, I
think that.
There you go, Rob.
I agree. I mean, I think we have to bring in young people. They have a certain perspective, as you said, as Gen Z, and they're being managed by probably baby boomers. Yeah. You said, I tell you to do this, go do it, and that's not going to work. And I think we owe it to the foreman to make them into leaders and make the supervisors into leaders and understand that. So I appreciate anything that you as a company or as a son, can go and do towards that, because otherwise they're going to be disillusioned and leave.
I got to have another 10 years before retirement. This thing has to work for the next 10 years.
Thank you, Rob. We have time for one more question. Rana?
Actually, this is going to be a comment first,
okay,
then a question, okay? Because Rob gave me an excellent segue. Thank you, Rob. This is a shameless plug for our May event, May 6th through the 8th in Clearwater. We are going to be addressing just what Rob and what Sean are talking about. So stay tuned. And now we have a question.
Okay, great. Thank you, Rana. That's so true. And please, what are the dates? Do you recall the dates in Clearwater?
May 6th through the 8th.
6th through the 8th. Great time to be down in Florida. Thank you, Rana. Question?
So it's more of an observation as a person. So I'm with the BCSP Foundation, and we are in this career space and had this conversation with NCCER and others. And I'm going to disappoint all of you and say you have to start in 8th grade.
Yeah. So true.
You actually need to develop these materials before they go in to high school, because they're making academic selections. And if nothing else, you want them to elect to expose themselves to one of the CTE classes. They may not choose that pathway. They may choose an academic pathway to become an engineer, but at least they'll have exposure to the practical application. And the other thing is that we have found, as a person with BCSP, safety is everywhere, but it's really hard to identify what a safety professional is. I'm not a safety professional, so I spend a lot of time explaining this. So we work with the school counselors, develop digital materials. Do digital materials. Don't hand them pamphlets. Tell them a story that the kids can watch on their phone, because that's where they're going to do it. And the counselors will distribute it and put it on your website, free downloads right here, source materials, and then point them to the programs on their campuses. The other great place that I think that you can actually strategically engage, I love that you're bringing in scouts. I love that. Bring in 4-H kids, right? Because they understand heavy equipment. Bring in your kids from Junior Achievement. Junior Achievement has amazing models for employers to directly engage, but they talk about career pathways that are college bound, and they don't necessarily talk about what the career progression can be, right? So Junior Achievement is a great space for us. We touch 13,000 kids, 8th graders, and 800 educators every year over a 2-day period in Indianapolis. That model exists all over the country. And we do a whole construction and engineering thing. We put in I-beams, we do a whole thing. They love it, and then we follow up with the digital materials. But our poor school counselors are under so much pressure, and they can't literally explain every career pathway. Because they don't know what an electrician does, right? And they don't know what an electrician does versus an engineer, versus, versus a nursing skills. It's so much for them. Make it really easy. And put digestible stuff that kids can watch on their phones, because those counselors, they will send it to them all day long, because it's the tool that they need. So investing in with your resource groups and developing that, and that's one of the things that Kurt, with their workforce development group, can maybe help pull together an integrated approach to an introduction to what construction is, that could then be disseminated out directly to the school counselors. And that's a partnership you could work through with NCCER. So here's the pathway. Here, pulling that together in a simple form with a really good video, a little bit of pictures, and a way to engage them and get their email.
Christine, thank you so much. Appreciate that final comment. Look, we could go on for the rest of the morning on this. There's that whole question of what about the immigration issue? And a lot of immigrants, illegal and legal, are hard workers, and they're looking for opportunity. We could go on, we could ask these 4 UC construction management seniors who've been listening to this like a fox in a hen house, what their perspective is. We simply don't have time, but I want to take a moment and thank Jennifer and company for a very robust discussion to get us started. Thank you so much. Outstanding. Thank you.